Welcome to the Growth Whisperers, where everything that we talk about is about building enduring, great teams. I'm Brad Giles, and today I'm joined with my co-host, Kevin Lawrence. How are you today, Kevin?
You know what? I'm doing awesome, Brad. I always love, we just spent, a good solid hour preparing for today's episode. And I just love the thinking that we have up front. We talk about all kinds of awesome stuff, and I'm looking forward to the conversation today.
Awesome. So what topics do we have on today's show?
It's interesting. My kid's got a new dog and I thought it was expensive, but now we just heard about a $74,500 dog that you can now buy. It's called Spot, and it's not what you think it is. And we're also going to talk about advisors and why they are such a catalyst to growth and success for many CEOs and leaders. But we kind of want to separate the wheat from the chaff on that. Or, what are the advisors that really make a difference? Now, we have a bit of a bias being advisors, but we work with lots of advisors and some of our clients, other advisors. So we're going to really break down how to have a rock star advisor or advisors working with you and how that helps your success. It's going to be really interesting.
Awesome. I'm excited to get into it. So Spot's like a purebred, like a show dog or something. Must be a pedigree, right?
It is. It actually would be a great show dog because, and it'll get a lot of attention more than any other dog because it's actually a robot. And it's Boston Scientific, I believe, is the right name of the company. Who we've seen the videos in the past of the dog. And Brad, you can kind of describe your own experience of watching the video.
Yeah, so it's Boston Dynamics. So Boston Dynamics were a robotics company. They were bought by Google, I think, several years ago. Now you may have seen this on the website on the internet, and there's a robot dog. 4 legs and a torso, and the trainers, the scientists are trying to kick it over, and so he's running through the forest, and they're trying to kick it over or chase it, and the robot dog falls over, Spot, and then it gets up, and then it keeps running, and they can't stop this thing from going. There's another one where there's the robot dog is programmed to open a door, so it gets up onto its hind legs and it activates the door handle, the lever of the door to open the door to get in. And there's a person who's trying to stand in the way. And this thing is unrelenting in trying to get there. So the story is that now we can buy this dog.
Yeah. Are you going to get one?
Nope.
I've got other things I'd probably rather spend 75 grand on, but what's interesting, and we just watched one of the recent videos on it. It's interesting that the doors, metaphorically, that it opens up for other innovations in business, because typically in robotics and automation, it's a stationary machine that can have a consistent motion and can really add a lot of value in manufacturing scenarios and others. But when you have this thing that can move and navigate new territory, we saw it walking up over a big pile of boulders and stuff. It's impressive as heck. But it opens up a lot of new opportunities for things that machines can do on our behalf. And it's not something on wheels or on tracks. It'll be really interesting to see what this technology becomes a catalyst for.
I think it's quite scary, because when you see something that, a robot of a dog size that's on wheels, you kind of think, oh, it's okay, I could climb a tree or something. But this thing is unrelenting, or I could go up a pile of rocks, as you said. So apparently this robot dog Spot has been sold to Singapore, and it's going around a Singapore park. It's about 2 miles in size, and it's promoting social distancing. It's going up to people, and it's got a speaker, and it's telling them to maintain social distancing. It's got a camera and so forth. I mean, if you had seen those scary videos of that dog, and suddenly you're in a park and you didn't know about this, and this dog comes up to you, you'd be terrified.
And you wonder, what would you be more terrified of? An angry pit bull or Rottweiler, which are stereotyped, not necessarily true, but stereotyped as really a violent or aggressive dogs, or this robot dog? I think I might be more afraid of the robot dog in certain scenarios, because you don't know, especially if it got into the hand of some bad guys. You don't know what it would do. I mean, and this is where it happens with artificial intelligence, robotics, and all these other things. It comes down to they're used just as effectively as the people behind them, right? And it's just like any sort of thing that is either used as a something that's helpful, or it's hurtful, or it advances society, or it's a weapon against people in society. So it'll be very interesting to see what comes. And so there's the social part of it, i.e. how it is in our lives, and then there's the business applications. And the social part kind of freaks me out. So who knows, you got cameras everywhere, you got robots everywhere, you got all this other stuff. It starts to get, makes this virus look like it's not such a big deal in comparison to what some of these other things can be. I'm not diminishing the virus. I'm just saying it just creates a scenario where your mind starts to play it out. It can get really interesting.
So once we think past bad guys and we think past the police state or the army, the military, it begins to get us to think, well, in other areas, are there opportunities? Sure, the price is a challenge, perhaps, but it got me, when I first saw it, it got me thinking, well, I wonder how some of the teams that I work with would be able to use something like that in what they do. And sure, if you're a restaurant, maybe not, but yeah, I mean, I think when we look at how robotics is evolving, if you're not thinking about how we can get robots and automation to improve the productivity of our workforce, you really, you're at a very good chance of being left behind. I've got a client at the moment, and they're automating their manufacturing facility, and they literally get a piece of steel at one end, and all the robots work on it, and it turns into a saleable product at the end. And that used to take, I'm going to say 8 or 10 hours, and now that's going down to about 10 minutes. So,
well, I'm thinking about this robot dog with one of the clients I work with. Also interesting manufacturing, and they manufacture very high-end metal roofing for very expensive premium homes. And the installation of metal roofing is pretty detailed and precise. You got to get it up on the roof. You've got to lay each piece out. You've got to screw it in, or I don't know how the fastener works, but and they clip together. Like, it's very precise. I'm going, I can picture one of these damn robot dogs installing the roof, because it can scan and do perfect, at some point, not yet. It can scan and do perfect measurements. It can get the pieces up there. It knows how to handle the metal. It's going to have the perfect torque on the screws in the right place. It can probably radar scan the roof to see where the studs are, so it can put a bigger bolt where the stud or the roofing, the frame of the roof is, and the small, like, if you think about it, handling these pieces, like things like that over time, and it could take a while, but very technical labor jobs in dangerous, like roofing can be dangerous if you don't use the right safety equipment, and people get hurt. And so if you think about applications like that, you would never think somebody else could replace the human. But, Spot the robot dog, or his younger siblings that come along in a few generations, could take on a number of roles. Think about, construction, and even manually digging or trenching in confined spaces. We have machines that can scoop stuff, right? Dig stuff. But what if you're in really precise spaces? Is Spot going to have, dogs are known for digging. Are they going to have a special digger dog? And why wouldn't they?
Well, someone will. That's the point.
Yes.
Is that in a competitive world, if you're not thinking about how can automation, how can robots help us to think creatively and get the people that we employ to do what humans do really well, which is creative thinking and decision making, and analyzing and understand data to make the right decision for the business, and all of those kind of things that more and more and more, if you're not doing it, if you're not thinking about it, your competitors will be.
Yes. And that's why, Brad, and both of us, when we work with the companies that we work with around the world, and we have them doing strategic thinking, we want to be tapping into the things, the trends and the coming things that could influence either how we deliver the products or services that we create or sell or market, and how we interact with the customers or what the customers demand. And so, for example, now Spot is putting onto some of our strategic plans how robotics could apply in different businesses not just big, heavy duty industrial manufacturing. It's
Absolutely.
it's quite fascinating. And as I shared with you earlier today, I had a first world issue with an Amazon delivery today. First world issue. Absolutely not going to get into the detail. No, I'm not going to tell you. But
come on.
It's, it's at the end of the day, the Amazon driver is supposed to, like every other Amazon driver, delivers the package, and I buzz them into the building and I tell them where to deliver it, and he or she never showed up. And if you want to make me mad, that's a great way to make me mad. And I had to go hunt in the building to find the package. And I found it down in the lobby where they conveniently just dropped it instead of bringing it all the way up. Kind of a little bit lazy, I think. Anyways, that's my judgment. I'm going to let that go. But the point of it is,
Spot's not going to do that.
Spot, I was going to say, Spot wouldn't let me down. Spot would come into the building. He might just leap up onto the balcony. He's going to push the right button in the elevator, come and deliver it to the door every time, without, maybe the person had a date and they wanted to get home, or maybe their family, who knows what the reason is, and maybe they had a good reason or maybe they didn't. But Spot would deliver 100% of the packages to exactly the right place 100% of the time, and he never calls in sick. And by the way, if Spot has a technical issue, we got Spot's backup, and we just drop that one into the system. So all of these jobs and this is an opportunity for companies and people, and it also is a good reason for people like our children to get into things that have to do with technology and robotics in the future, because there's probably, a lot of jobs that will be taken out by them, but yet it creates new jobs on the innovation side of the equation.
But, and I feel for those people. I feel, there is some societal challenges. Think about all the truck drivers who are going to be out of a job, all of the robotics, how it's going to impact. But the point is, if you think about yourself, you need to continue to get better. You need to become a better version of yourself. Yes. Even if you're a truck driver, even if you're a delivery driver, or whatever it is, if you're, the person who was doing Spot's job before Spot, you've got to never stop learning. Don't stop learning. You've got to continue to become a better version of yourself than you were last year. And that's the way, if you can do that, that's the way to protect yourself against these advancing technologies.
It's almost like the biological imperative of the strong survive, and we're always trying to get a little bit better, which is a beautiful transition into our next segment, Brad. That you teed that thing up so beautifully. That was impressive, my friend. And I can see where you were going. And yes, so thank you, Spot, for the inspiration and showing us a way where robotics can come into normal businesses. But going back to the always getting better piece, and today we're really going to dig into this piece around advisors and why they're such a catalyst to success for so many people. And these, it could be coaches, it could be consultants, it could be truly advisors, it could be mentors, it could be role models. But how humans can be such a catalyst to the success for so many other humans. And it was interesting. And I'll start off with something to share with a great mentor of mine. I may have mentioned him on a previous show, but his name was Warren Morgan, and he was a manager I had in the 90s in a job that I had, and he was amazing. It was interesting. There's a whole bunch of colleagues that keep in touch occasionally. I just got an email last week with someone that had saw a sign that had his name on it from something else. And then they shared it. We all kind of had some memories of good old Warren and the mentor and the role model he was. But he and many other people really shaped who I am and helped me to pop up to a whole other level in my career. Yeah. And I look at people like him. I had a teacher in elementary school named Matt Jameson in grade 5 or grade 6, who was an inspired teacher, who was amazing for me. And all these other people, a great actual mentor that I had, coaches that I've had, consultants that I've hired, all of these great people in my life that have helped me on my passion of growth and becoming a better version of myself so I can, help other people. It's incredible. It's like, it takes a tribe, it takes a village, as the saying goes. And, we want to dig in today, like, everything's about the power of the people you surround yourself with. But in particular, what is it that makes for the advisors, and we'll use the term advisor and we can break that down further, but the advisors that really make a big impact on we'll just say ourselves as leaders or as CEOs.
Yeah. And this is nothing new. It's very easy to look and think, oh, this is a fad, but you can go back to war times, like with world wars, or you can go way beyond that, back to ancient Greece and someone like Seneca, who was an advisor to the most powerful man in the
Yeah.
world. This is nothing new. There is a dynamic that works really well with humans, which is there is the king, and then there is the advisor to the king, or there is the leader, and then there is the advisor. And that dynamic and that role is really important, and the way that person interacts with the people in that environment. So, yeah, it's not. It's easy to say, oh, there's a surge in coaching or advising, or it's popular or whatever, but this is not something new. It's important to sort of ground the conversation in that foundation, I think.
It is. And there has always, as you said, there has always been great people throughout all of history. And even going any time, there's always been great people helping other people. So why don't we just touch for a minute? Like, why do you think there is, and the word coach, by the way, I have a personal slight bit of an issue with the term coach because, when I was growing up, it used to be that, it's like every ex-executive who got let go or lost their job became a consultant. So
Yeah.
the term consultant there are professional consultants that come out of the excellent business schools and work for the big consulting firms that are serious about their craft and their discipline. It is not necessarily an easy job. And then there's the out of work executive that calls himself a consultant, which kind of diluted that term. And there used to be lots of jokes about that in the 80s and 90s and probably still today. And then today we got this.
No, but you can say the same thing about anything, like car racing, right? And I'm not
Sure.
going fully onto another tangent, but you could say anyone who's got a few extra dollars buys a car, goes down the track, but they're not Formula One racers who are professionals
Correct.
and masters.
That's a great distinction, Brad. Yes. There's the hobbyists, there's the passionate people who play with it.
Yeah.
There's the hobbyists who are serious, and then there's the people that dedicate their life to it. And I think that's a great way of looking at it, because it used to drive me crazy when I would say, yeah, well, my friend just became a coach. And I would be hearing about this person and they used to, have some job, and then they did this, and then they took a course, and now they're quote a coach. But then if I'm also a coach, I do not want to be painted with that same brush. I spent 25 years trying to master all these different skills and work on myself and learn like crazy and helping all these people and pulling from all those learnings and separating out what worked and what didn't and like you.
But that's a massive frustration for CEOs and leaders, because they look at it and they go, this is in disarray. And to peel behind the curtain, like that's how we feel as well. I mean, I've spent 20 years, and I know that you've spent a long time. I've spent 20 years as an entrepreneur trying to build great companies. And of the last 10 years as a coach advisor trying to build great companies. And I've dedicated my life to mastery. And as I know you have, and that's why we're doing this podcast together, because we've got that same mindset. But, it frustrates us as much as it frustrates anyone, because we're dedicated to it. Tell me more about the difference between the coach and the advisor, and why you're drawn towards the advisor now. What you're saying?
Because there's too many people calling themselves a coach that I would never let near one of my clients. I know some excellent coaches. I've had the opportunity to meet a lot of excellent coaches, excellent facilitators, and things like that. I just think the term has been diluted, right? The aspiration, and the difference is there's so many people who have aspired to help. All people who would call themselves a coach, almost all of them, do have a great desire to help others. They absolutely do. The challenge is that we're in a field where the best people charge very substantial fees for the work they do.
Yeah.
And it looks really easy. Like it really, I don't know, when I'm doing my best work or when you're doing your best work, it generally looks really easy. And it's not. In many ways, no. It's like, a great painter who can do an amazing painting in 25 minutes and it looks spectacular. But it also took 25 years of practice to do it in 25 minutes.
or a Formula One driver. It looks easy the way they go around that track.
It does.
I got into a simulator and I couldn't even get around the corner.
Yeah, one of my passions is racing cars. I get into a simulator in an F1 car. It is unbelievably difficult. Unbelievably difficult. So the reality is that, for me, I have chosen the term advisor because the truth is, in the purest sense, coaching goes back into the days of Socrates and Socrates in particular, where you ask questions to elicit great thinking and to cause great thinking. The belief of a true coach is that the other person has the answer buried somewhere in their brain or their instincts, and you have to ask the right questions to help them self-discover. That's truly the root of coaching. And for myself, in addition to that, I've written a couple books, and like yourself, have an incredible amount of experience in business and seeing everything you can imagine. So there is the asking and eliciting, and there's also some teaching, suggesting, and recommending. So advisor is a term for me that I have those coaching skills. Otherwise, would never help build the companies that we've done and or retain the clients while still challenging them and pushing them hard at times when it's needed. But it takes into account this mix of almost, in my world, probably, depending on it, it ranges anywhere from 25% coach, 75% consultant, i.e. expert who does some sharing, teaching, telling, or calling it thought leader or consultant, whatever you want to, or to 90% asking questions and coaching and only 10%, advising or consulting, depending on the situation and the relationship and what it requires.
It's a difficult situation that we find ourselves in, that CEOs find themselves in, because it's such a mixed environment. And I know, a lot of coaches, a lot of leaders, just want to find a great coach that's a good fit. They want to find someone that's going to take them to the next level.
Yep.
And it's not like so many other professions. But I'm kind of, I wouldn't say I'm on the fence, but I don't think there's an easy answer. But I want to draw upon a guy called Bill Campbell from a book I read called $1 Trillion Coach. That's with a T. Yep. Bill Campbell was the coach to Apple and Google, I think, and maybe Salesforce, amongst many others. And I could have the Salesforce one wrong, but some of the top Silicon Valley companies and the larger companies in the world at the moment. And so this is Ronnie Lott. I'm just going to have a quick quote here describing Bill Campbell in that book. Great coaches lie awake at night thinking about how to make you better. They relish creating an environment where you get more out of yourself. Coaches are like great artists, getting the stroke exactly right on a painting. They're painting relationships. Most people don't spend a lot of time thinking about how they're going to make someone else better, but that's what coaches do. And that's probably the best description that I can think of that describes what I do. And I only say that not as an advertisement in any means, but just to say, like, it's hard to describe what we do. Like, you get into a $50 million company and you're spending time with the CEO and the leadership team. And like, I'm fully embedded in that team. And that's where my head is completely drawing upon all of the other pattern recognition that I've kind of, I guess, observed as an entrepreneur and in other teams, and trying to help them to get to the next best place.
And being obsessed with it. Like, the companies that I work with, people in my life, if I'm in the middle of my like one of the CEOs I work with, they've got something where they've asked me to do some additional stuff to help them fix something in their business. And they've asked me to join and facilitate some meetings once a month. The CEO asked, my answer is yes. And then I figure out how to make it happen. They need it. I know it's one of the most important things for their business for the next 3 to 5 years. So I know that it's important. They have asked me to help them, but I'm like, I'm going to book it in the middle of my holidays. Like, I have to make these meetings work. So I said to my assistant, find ways to move things into my schedule. And if it's in my holidays, let me know and I'll decide whether I can do it or not. And of course I'm doing it. And so it's like, this is not a job. It's a passion. It's an obsession. It's my life's, it's because you're the same. It's our life's work. And people around me think it's nuts. And I mean, this morning I was on a very early call this morning. I just taught a course to a whole bunch of CEOs down in Australia tonight. Now we're doing this podcast, and it's just like, it's early, it's late. Somebody calls, I'm going to help them. It's a calling and a passion. And that's why you notice. And here's the thing is, just look at the best advisors, or let's say coaches you've ever had. The give a shit factor is huge.
Oh yeah.
Like, and whether it's in sport coaches or other things. And what I notice myself, and I've worked with lots of coaches and consultants and advisors over the years, the ones that you really feel have your back and really deeply care, and they also care outside the 30-60 minute meeting you have, or the 2-day meeting. That's the real caring. Like, I am shocked. A lot of people care when they're on the clock, but they don't care so much. And you can sense it, you can feel it. And I'm like, and my aspiration, and maybe it's just me and my style, and I know you're the same, Brad, is like, if you deeply care, you care more than just when you're on the clock. And you feel like,
I've got a client that comes to mind when you say that. Sorry to cut you off there, but
that's okay.
I said to him maybe a month ago, I said, like, since we last spoke a few weeks ago, I've probably spent about 3 or 4 hours thinking about this one thing. And he was kind of shocked. He was like, what do you mean? Like, and I'm like, yeah, like it's been troubling me. So I've spent a lot of time and I've done some research on it, and I've played out some different scenarios, how we can get this particular thing in the leadership team to work, and how we can translate that into what we're doing with clients. And he was kind of, he was kind of shocked that I'd said it, but moreover, I think he was touched that someone cared in the way. And then he kind of thought, well, yeah, I've known you for years. I get that. But I said, you don't understand. When we're together, there's so much thinking and preparation that's going on to get that right, because it's about caring. But
it's about caring and also showing, like, again, Brad, we know when we first met, we were both on a very similar wavelength. I mean, you have a funny accent, but aside from that, we're very, 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 very similar.
That's funny, because you've got a funny accent as well.
I know, it's weird, hey? But the thing is, I think about is with my client, we even structure our work with clients that we're going to do this certain amount of work for a set fee. But if there's extra things that are needed here and there, we're going to do them, and we're not even going to count the hours. We're just going to do it. So, client that I was with this morning, with a client down in the US with the CEO, with a one-on-one call, and then with his team. One of the executives I've talked to for probably an hour over the last few weeks, helping them to troubleshoot an issue because they needed it. And there's something with another one of the executives that I'll have another conversation with as well and sort out. But it's like, because I want to see them succeed, I expect to put in some extra time and even structure it so we can, because if every time I care, I got to send another bill, it makes me cringe. Now, if they're going to book another meeting or something, that's different, but we engineer our things to create space for that. So we can have that kind of all in type relationship, because I take a lot of pride in how my clients do. And when things get weird, I want to be there for them. So that's a deep passion about the profession, I think, and the craft of what we're doing, I think. And I know you've got the same kind of wiring, Brad.
Well, I guess we speak to a lot of coaches, and one of the things I find fascinating is, what's your average tenure? So you work with a client. How long are you working? I know what you'll love.
It's not a fair question sometimes, Brad. I'm very careful with that.
This is, I know, but it's an interesting question, right? And I'm going to come at it from two fronts.
Well, it is, because it's an indicator. What's the average tenure of a company who's very good at taking care of their clients? A long damn time.
Yeah.
Right? That's what business is to build a relationship and fill a need for an extended period. I mean, Brad, like I got one client in the Southern Hemisphere. It's 12 years. I've got a client in India. I don't know. The challenge I have in my world is my clients stay a very long time. One, because I'm always trying to do my best work. But two, I'm always learning and growing and bringing new things and a better version of myself to the table. But if I look at my client in the Middle East, it was 13 years. Every quarter for 13 years, I flew halfway around the world to work with those companies. India, gosh, it's probably been 10. I've got a client locally. I think it's 18 years. I almost hate to say it. It's incredible. Lots and lots of clients. And again, there's downsides to that, because I also love working with new people, solving new problems. And by the way, long-term is also not perfect, because sometimes there's value in a different advisor or different perspectives too. So, but if you talk to a lot of, I talk to lots of coaches where it's like, well, let's hear what you have to say. I'm getting excited about this one, but I pride myself in long-term. I am also a relationship person, Brad. I pride myself in building long-term relationships of companies that grow quarter after quarter, almost every quarter. Just working with a client, that's not success. Retention, I want work with them. And like, one of the clients we started with, we started about 30 million and they're going to cross 230 this year. Like that's, that kind of stuff. Like that's like,
enduring great companies. That's
yes.
That's
it's damn hard
that's
work.
What we say at the beginning of the podcast.
Yep, it's damn hard work. It's damn challenging. The work never stops. The cognitive strain never stops, and I love it.
You said before that sometimes it's good to get a different view, but I would push back to you on that to a degree. You're a different person than you were a year or 2 or 3 ago. And that's part of the value in a long-term relationship, is that each year you front up as a new and different coach, advisor, who is bringing a new game. And totally. Everything you've said, I agree with 100%. But if you're a CEO who's listening, like, I think that's a really important question. What's your average tenure? Maybe even more important than, can I speak to some clients? Like, because that says a lot. But if you're a coach who's listening and you're saying, well, mine's about 1.2 or 1.3 years, because mine's like yours. Mine's like 7 years or something like that, 7 years.
But Brad, I know you're obsessed with learning and growth and mastery of the craft. Like, I know you are.
Well, that's it. Yeah. So
it's not just a job. It's an obsession, and it's a passion.
Mastery.
It's mastery.
Building great teams.
And I'm always trying to get better. And even just on that, Brad, just a quick story. I've got a client I have worked with for 10 years, and that company we have scaled. Actually, it's similar, from just around 30, and this year we'll probably hit about 250 million in revenue. Corresponding profits. But that client, I worked with that CEO for 10 years. There's a new assessment that we've been mastering and using. And I did that assessment with the CEO 2 months ago and had this epiphany to where I understand the CEO to a whole other, our coaching. It's like my ability to help them went through a whole new level. After 10 years, we've done great work and always got better. But one assessment that we've been mastering in our firm helped us to enhance the relationship to a totally other level. And so by the way,
if you're go on.
No, I can keep going forever. But the thing is, if you would
look
at
it, CEO. Well, you said no, so I'm going to cut in.
Do it.
If you're a CEO, ask about tenure. But if you're a coach, like, ask why. If you really care, if you're only, that's the part of the problem. There's a lot of people who are just about the transaction, and I've got no time for that, right?
Nope.
But if you're a coach and your average tenure is 1.2 years, like, you've got to ask why. Like, there's some fundamental reasons.
It's like if you're the coach of a pro sports team, or you're the coach of a pro athlete or anything, and if you only stick around for a year, you got a problem. And by the way, absolutely, because that means that something is missing in the equation. It's almost like A players in businesses. A players don't switch jobs every 2 years. A players have long tenure of increasing responsibility and compensation. and delivery of results.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a big piece of it. I mean, A players have an obsession. Some people might think they have a bit of a disease where they can't relax and they need to always try harder. It's very conducive to achievement, but it works.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really interesting. And again, we're not saying the tenure is everything. It's an indicator of ability to create value and being a great advisor. So for example, I had a call today with the CEO and the soon-to-be president, and the CEO is going to move more towards chairperson. President's going to run the company, and we're talking about setting up the relationship to win.
Yeah.
You know, a little bit of education on the same assessment I mentioned a minute ago to help them understand each other's dynamics, and it helps us to understand predictably where the relationship will be strong between these two, and where it's going to, where if it blows up, how it will blow up and what it will look like. This assessment is awesome. And then we had a conversation. I'm just facilitating a conversation. Hey, what needs to change for this transaction to work, and what do we put in place to make sure it does? So it's just an hour of, you know, of talking with them, working it through. We got some action items. We'll follow it up. But that looks like an insanely simple conversation. But there's a lot to know, and there's a lot to me just letting them talk. You know, a lot of times people are so focused on trying to create value. A lot of times creating value is asking a question and shutting up, which is the opposite of what we do here. But go ahead, Brad.
So why does that work?
So because they're not coming to us, they're not always coming to us for the best advisors. Don't necessarily just give you answers. They create an environment for growth. Remember, we're the growth whisperers, Brad. They create this environment where thoughts come out, things expand, you get an epiphany. Sometimes you have a freaking minute to think. Sometimes these people are going so quickly, and that's why the best coaching is so damn simple. I used to feel guilty earlier on when people would pay me what they pay me, and I feel like I didn't even do much.
Yeah.
But that's usually some of the best coaching, sorry. You don't do much. You ask really good questions. You shake up some thinking. You might offer a bit of a perspective. You call to action. And then sometimes, if you're me, you follow up and hunt them down to make sure they do the damn action, which reminds me.
So I'm going to ask that. Yeah, you write that down that note while we're recording. That's cool. So why?
No, I just thought of one of my clients. I just thought of one of my clients that had to make a tough call last week, and I got to follow up with him to make sure he did it. I'm just like, I got to call this guy. Your name starts with a J. You might know who you are. You were supposed to do something serious last week, and he's a very successful CEO, but I know he probably didn't do it. So I'm going to follow up with him, make sure he gets the damn thing done. Sorry, Brad. I just, you know, it's that obsession.
It's all good. It's all good because that's who we are. We're passionate. I don't care. Like we've got to get things done. We've got to do the right thing. I'm circling back, and I'm going to ask that question again about that environment. President moving to chairman, new president coming in. How does the dynamic work? The question that we're trying to ask in this podcast is, why are advisors such a catalyst for success? Drawing into that environment, why is your role in that discussion a catalyst for success? Why? Any comments or thoughts?
Brad, I got 17 of them. But let me think, what is the biggest reason? You know, at the root, it creates a safe space for open, important discussions. And that's when there's and to really get the most important things on the table, and then to boil it down into 2 or 3 things that matter. And 2 things happen. One, these people sometimes are so busy doing what they're doing, they're not going to do what looks like a selfish act to talk about themselves or an awkward act. It's when you're building a company, it's hard. You're going so damn fast. 2, when you have these quote crazy ideas, you don't necessarily want to throw them out into the room in some stuff and look stupid.
Yeah.
Or confuse a team because the idea is half baked. Because in many ways we're kind of like the laboratory, especially if it's one-on-one or strategic thinking groups. So
Yeah.
it's permission. And you know, as a coach, I also, you know, do a big piece of normalizing stuff and making mistakes okay and asking stupid questions. So you create this open environment because, you know, we're all proud people. And when we're in the positions we're in, sometimes we believe that we often believe we're supposed to have it all figured out. And we create an environment where you don't have to have it figured out, and we can talk it out and work it out.
Yeah.
And separate all the noise from the couple of things that matter. There's so much stuff, man. So much. Like with this CEO and this president stepping in, we had 3 or 4 things. That's all that matters. And we built in an insurance policy, which was, you know, if they're regular, you know, weekly chats, and if something slips and just they get stuck, you know, they also call a meeting with Kevin. Right?
Yeah.
Kevin, they can have a meeting with Kevin. We'll work it out because I can unpack it, get down to the facts, strip out the emotion. So it's about a safe space it's a safe space with an experienced guide who's been there before. No different than if we wanted to take a tour of Tasmania or Tuscany. When you have a local guide who has walked people down this road before, it's just way easier. I don't know. What do you?
I do
That's
get
my
that question
take.
a lot. What do your other clients do on this subject? Yeah, that's for
They
sure.
love it. One of my clients says, Kevin, you know, this is like after 7 years of working, he says, Kevin, you know, I love it when you come in and teach me new things and help me grow as a CEO, because I was his private professor basically. And I love hearing what your other clients are doing.
Yeah.
Right? Because we get a privileged inside view of the boardroom. And I would say I am so grateful to the great CEOs and leaders I've worked with over the years, you know, especially some of the international ones that really opened my eyes to a different view of how business is done in some cases, and in mostly very, very good ways. But I've had the opportunity to be a part of probably $1 billion at least of experiments.
Yeah.
And financial experiments of business. And you see the hypothesis to which we make this investment.
Yeah.
Then you get to track it and you get to be in the room and hear the rationalizations and the ideas and everything. And then you get to follow it through to when reality kicks in, and then we try to save our butts because it screws up, and how we recovered it and what we learned. Well, you know, being a tag along on $1 billion of spend and seeing what works and what doesn't work, it's kind of valuable. It's taught me a lot. I did calculations that of seeing and hiring mistakes. It was, I think, $180 million. $100 million of accountable impact from bad, like the wrong people in the wrong role and damages they did to the business.
Wow.
Yeah. Like, because of the scale of I've worked with some larger entrepreneurial companies. There's some big screw ups, you know, and in one company, I think we're up to $18 million in one company from 3 bad hires, 18 of accountable losses. So
on that question, one of the things I think is that the person, the advisor, the coach is not a subordinate. Okay. And
yeah, damn right.
And I think that's a really important part of why they're a catalyst for success.
Yeah.
And coupled with the fact that they're not a subordinate, that what I've seen great coaches do is they speak the truth, and they're not afraid to walk to the fire, for want of a better term.
What does walk to the fire mean, Brad? That sounds interesting. I don't know what it means.
I just made it up.
That sounds pretty cool.
What it means in the context. So let me contextualize and draw this out a little bit. One of the things, you and I met in an organization with coaches, and in there I did a lot of training with a lot of coaches. So I got to see coaches who would come in, and some of them were more, let's say, A-type personalities, and some of them were more perhaps suited to a subordinate level because they'd come from, I don't know, let's say a mid-management position or whatever, different personalities. it doesn't matter what's going on. If you need to speak the brutal truth as a coach, it's your job. And if it's going to hurt, you've got to do it. You've got to remove the Band-Aid if it's going to hurt, or whatever silly analogy I can use. So I go into many of the meetings that I run, and I think, you know what, like, I'm absolutely prepared to end this engagement today, even if I've been working with them for 7 years. Yeah, like it doesn't matter.
Sorry, Brad,
No.
you got me excited. Go ahead.
No, because I've got to speak the truth.
Yeah.
Okay. I've got to clear the air, because in these organizations, in these leadership teams, so often, like, it's the fog is overwhelming. So there's got to be an outside person who isn't a subordinate who comes in,
who's not worried about job security like everyone else is.
Yeah. Zero.
Brad, I had a mentor early in my career that said, Kevin, if you want to be a great coach, you need to have 1 year's living expenses in cash in your checking account.
Yep, totally.
Because you need to be willing to tell the client off or lose the gig so when I was super busy working in the Middle East for 13 years, it was a massive client. I kept myself very busy in the rest of the world, even with that one massive client, because I wanted to continue to take risks and push the envelope with that client. And I at the very, very end, things kind of lightened off, and that's when I ended, because it was time to move on. But you got to be willing to get fired. So for example, like, I tell the CEOs I work with that we need to be able to debate like brothers and sisters. And I need to be able to, and I have one client, and again, some people are more aggressive. I've got one very way out there aggressive CEO. I love him like a brother. Yeah. And we fight like brothers. Like, we had a session last week, and at one point he told me to F off and flashed me his middle finger. And at another point, and if we were in person, we would have been arguing and of course giving each other a big hug, but not everyone in the room is comfortable doing that. And when him telling me to F off is a brotherly love type thing. Like, it's not a pure anger. It's like a joking, but he pushes me and I push him. It's a very peer based, and most CEOs, executives have a harder time being a peer. And I often will have big debates now in different, in some of the Western cultures, we might have it in the room. And in other cultures, we'll have it one-on-one. But to be able to do that, and I remember one client I had once, and I was going through and summarizing some things that I'd seen and going through it. And he's a person that very few people would challenge it was wildly successful, wildly powerful. He goes, Kevin, do you have anything good to tell me? I said to him, so-and-so, all those people up there, they feed you good news all day, every day. I ain't one of them. So, and he laughs. He goes, continue. Because he knows that that was part of the value. I would tell him the brutal truth. I would call him and say, hey, I just heard what you did. You can't do that. You got to come back and apologize. Like, no, but that's the beauty. And like I said, Brad, this gets to the beauty of a relationship with a good advisor, is that you can be truthful, transparent conversations and getting the stuff out in a way that's designed to continue the growth, right? And you have enough connection that you can let it in. And we learned the skill of the different way to deliver it to different people. But that's the beauty of the best people who help me. They know how to help, and in the end, it hurts sometimes. Yeah. But they lift you to this next level, just like a good manager does. And in many ways, it's like we're leaders to the most senior leaders of the company, usually the CEO or key execs, because they need it too. And when there's a good fit, it's a beautiful relationship. Like, I just love it. And obviously, a bunch of them still continue to think it's pretty good too, because they want to keep doing it.
But it's important. It's important within that like what we're saying is that we're not always right. Like that would be the
No.
preface to everything.
Or
I'm
the
not
right fit, or the right fit for certain people too, Brad. Like that's super important.
I definitely agree. Like, I'm going to come back to that in one sec, but in the context of, you've got to be prepared to walk away. You've got to speak the truth, and you've got to walk to the fire. Like, if there's an issue in the room, like a great coach
Yes.
is going to go to that, and they're
Yes.
going to say, look, there is this burning dumpster in the middle of this boardroom, and this is a little bit of an issue that we need to talk about. I don't care if you don't want to talk about it. And that's, it's cutting apart all of the dynamics in the leadership team to bring out truth that really matters. But now I'm going to come back to what you just said, because I reckon 95% of the people that inquire with me, I don't end up working with. And that's just because I'm looking for a really strong fit. And I say that to them. I say, look, 9 out of 10 people who come here, or 95%, you know, I'm going to recommend you to another coach, but there is a really good fit for me and for you.
Yep.
And the dynamics that we're building here, we've got to, you know, you've got to get it right. And maybe someone else will be a good fit for you, and that's fine. But they've got to be coachable. Like, that's really the essence of it.
So there's fit, which is values and philosophy. Like for me, they've got to care about building a enduring great company, and care about building a strong team, and actually care about their people. Some don't. But so there's a values fit, that we have a philosophical alignment. And like, if I look at the ones that they're generally very driven, very down to earth. Almost all of the CEOs are very, very down to earth people who don't want to hold their success over other people's heads. Now, they might fly in on a private jet, and their friends and family know it, but they're not going around town bragging about it, right? Or whatever. And not all of them have jets. A few of them have jets, but it's like, you know, but they are very good, humble. They are. They're like, you know, level 5 leaders, and coachable. And that, my friend, is the big deal. Is that, you know, and I have a test that I do when I'm working with them. I have to make sure they're coachable. And man, when I was early on,
so
I thought I could coach everyone. I was super coach. But, you know, and there's two things. Sometimes that people are not coachable by nature and who they are. And sometimes even psychologically, like if they're heavily medicated for an injury or trauma, sometimes even there's certain things that keep people from not being able to be coached, or coaching is not the right thing for them at that point in time. But I always double check on the coachable, because I've had clients that weren't. It ain't fun for them, and it ain't fun for me.
And it's funny when you do that. So I've got the same thing, right? Are you coachable? Do you really want to build a great business? Because I'm not here to do a 6-month engagement. Like, I'm here to build a great business, and that takes pain. And it takes lots of pain, and it's a challenging scenario. And are they a learner, right? Not because they need to be, know every book that's been written about business. But if I kind of inquire about their learning habits, and they say, no, I haven't really learned anything since I left college. Well, that's a bit of a problem for me, because we're going on every year, just like I said about us, like every year the leadership team needs to become a better version of itself so it can handle the new growth that we're creating and the new environment. We don't want to be having to fire people on the leadership team because they're not capable of keeping up. So yeah, I'm looking around the same thing. Are they coachable? Are they a learner? Do they want to build a great business? But it's interesting because every other person that the CEO deals with in that type of environment wants to sell them stuff. And there's this one turkey who's saying, well, maybe we're not going to work together. Maybe it's not going to be a good fit. And, you know, it's quite unfamiliar to them in that sense, because others are trying to make a sale no matter the cost almost. And they're like, whatever you want me to say, yeah, I'll do it. And then here's us saying, no, well, maybe, have you thought there's another way? Maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong.
Which is how I even show up. And even that's why I always do a bit of coaching in the first couple conversations. And that's why I typically have. And sometimes I'll talk to a CEO for 30 minutes and we go. Like they've heard about me, they're referred to me or my team, and they just want to go because, you know, and which I've had one of my best clients. I talked to him for 20 minutes, but he was a strong referral from another client. So it was pre-qualified on both ways. But, we got another CEO that wanted some help, and we've had 3 conversations, and I know it's an excellent fit. We are for sure now, and I'm willing to work with them because I don't want to invest. I'm not doing this for 6 months like you. I want this. It's a multi-year, and I want to see 2, 3, 4, 5x growth of their firm and of the quality of their life. But it's like I'm placing my bets too. It's like we're talent agents. I'm looking for talent, underdeveloped talent that I can help. And they're already successful. Don't get me wrong, but they're serious about getting to the next level, and it's gonna be fun to work with them. Hard but fun. So yeah, it's really interesting. So I'm qualifying them and trying to understand them, and often I can tell when there's a good fit. I've learned from doing it wrong. And I often, I'll refer them. And what I notice is I have a pretty distinct personality, and people I'm kind of like that fire. People either run towards me or they run away. And especially when I start to push them. And I think you're similar, Brad, but you do it probably in a less abrasive way than I might.
Yeah. But the point is that the mechanics are the same. And what we're like, if we begin to round out, what we're saying is that there are attributes of great advisors or coaches, and we can draw on Bill Campbell, or we can draw on Socrates. And, it may be a long bow to draw to do that. But there, in today's world, there are certain traits that make a great coach. There are certain things that they do that make advisors a catalyst for success. And we kind of said that it's the trust, it's the fit, it's the fact that they're prepared to walk away, it's that they're going to speak truth, and they're going to not be a subordinate, as just a few of the kind of items there.
And they take it, they take it deep. And that's why it's taken me so long to build a team and to find people that I can believe in and recommend to my clients. It's not easy because so many people want to do it, but like a lot of things, they're not willing to put in the time and the work to develop the high degree of capability. And it's like, in many ways, the way I look at both Brad, I look at our clients and with our advisors, either on our team or that I would, refer business to, like yourself. Many people are happy playing at kind of a high school level of a sport. And, for most of our companies, we're like semi-pro or pro. This is not a little, let's do it because it would be interesting. We're serious, and our people are very, very serious. And that's why even with my team, we're not perfect. We're pretty darn good, and we always try to get better. But when we integrate with other people, even externals that we've hired to help us with projects, we're usually disappointed, even ourselves. And there's very few people that can meet our expectations, truly. And I warn people, even when I do projects, when I'm doing a renovation or hiring a contractor or stuff. I had a contractor that did a big project that we did a while ago, and he had a script of which he warned all the trades about how it was going to be. And I am very friendly about it. But it's like, I'm very clear about what I want. If it's not done to standard, it will be done to standard, and otherwise you're not getting paid. Very, very, very clear and crisp. And so basically fairly hard to meet expectations. And
And that's like the truth thing. It's kind of who you are. So in terms of being a great coach or finding a great coach, there's a big component of the personality. I've just always been a person who's spoken the truth, like not in that degree, but I've been brutally honest always when it's necessary. And it's just needed. And that's, so I think that there's a little bit of who you are that gives you the core competency to become a great coach, if that makes sense, or advisor.
And there's many different versions of it, Brad.
Yeah.
And by the way, we got to do our Enneagram assessment. That's the assessment have you ever done Enneagram, Brad?
the podcast hasn't stopped. I'm just pausing. Um, all right. So we went out to dinner 6 months or a year ago, and that was the first time I'd ever heard of Enneagram.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm a skeptic on everything, and that doesn't mean that I should be or I shouldn't be. But it's just not. It's not something. What I learned at that dinner, let me be clear, is that the Enneagram seems to be quite popular in America or in North America. It's not popular here for no other reason than it's not. It doesn't mean it's not working, or it does work or it doesn't. It's just I hadn't heard of it, and no one I knew had heard of it either. And so I felt like I'd stepped into, at that time when everybody at the table knew their Enneagram number and they knew how they interacted. And there was people at the table who were like professors in this subject, and I knew nothing, which is great. It's good to learn.
Is that
new
the dinner
things.
in Vancouver? Is that one I was at? Yeah.
And there was, yep.
Yes,
yep,
I remember.
A few other people there.
I remember. Yep.
And
a couple of those people were over the top obsessed with Enneagram. Yes.
Yeah, as I said, professors. It was.
Do you know yours? Did you ever figure yours out?
No, but I was told what I am pretty quickly based on their observation of what I was doing, and I don't know. It was a number. I remember that.
That's excellent. So we should. So for me, for example, an Enneagram, and we'll kind of wrap up here in a minute. But I'm what's called an 8, which is the challenger. It's the protective challenger, and as part of that, and part of the fact that I don't have a filter, it seems I have learned, I can't help but speak a brutal truth, even it's when I've screwed up. I want to, I'll spare you the examples, but. So that's part of the Enneagram that I have, which is a quest for truth and a challenger by nature. And so what my 8 is a very specific style of coach, which, you're going to be in that direction. We'll deal with that later, but it's this desire to speak the truth, and it's natural. And for a lot of people, it definitely isn't. That's why, 8s in an Enneagram are very common leaders of organizations and people who make things happen, which comes down to wiring. So people are by nature more suited to the kind of coaching role, and there's different styles. Like I know my style is not for everyone. Some people just want to be told nice things and all positivity and all encouragement and all that stuff. And that's I'm not so much a cheerleader. I'm a coach that helps you to grind it out to a higher level. And and you have your own way of doing that too. So anything else you'd add to that, Brad? It's been a fascinating discussion, and fascinating discussion about the different things. And I hope everyone gets is that, we're talking about what we've learned. There are lots of different coaches out there who are great and offer different things. And we're sharing it from our perspective of coaches and advisors. And I'm thinking about it from my perspective as a consumer. I have my own coaches and I've had my own different advisors on different things over the years, but it's really building that strong synergistic relationship or symbiotic relationship that really is a catalyst for growth. And that's what I think the best of those relationships are, no matter how you look at it.
Yeah, I think we probably covered it off. I think that really, this dynamic works for many people, for many leaders, and it has done for generations. It's about human interaction more than anything, and the dynamics. The question is, how do you get the right fit for you? And that's definitely not saying it is me or it is you, but the most important thing is finding the right fit for you as a leader. That's the closing kind of.
And the way you would know you had it, and I'll quote you, Brad, is that every year you become a better version of yourself as a leader and in your life. And if you have the right coaches and advisors, you are the product of it. Just look in the mirror and you continually get better, more effective, and ideally happier and more fulfilled too.
Yeah. Yep.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Well, hey, thanks for listening. This has been the Growth Whispers podcast with Brad, and I'm Kevin. For the video, go to YouTube and you can find us on The Growth Whispers. And to reach Brad, evolutionpartners.com.au. And for myself, Kevin, lawrenceandco.com. I hope you find this valuable, and we'll have more interesting thoughts next week where we're just going to share our insights and our learnings in a way that we hope helps you to grow and for you to become a better version of yourself year after year, or at least week after week would be ideal, but we'll take year after year, quarter after quarter. Have a great one.
Have a good week. See ya.